Honorable BEDZRAH and Honorable Intosu.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity given to us to make a statement as a follow-up to what our medical brother has made. Mr. Speaker, recently our President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, granted an interview to Al Jazeera, a Gulf News channel, on a wide range of issues while on his official trips abroad. In that interview, Mr. Speaker, one of the questions which followed a response by His Excellency, and that struck and elicited mixed reaction from many Ghanaians, was the one that borders on the acceptance of the practice of lesbianism, gayism, bisexual, and transgender, LGBT, as a human right in Ghana. Just as the debates on the issue were about to subside, there were news reports that the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mrs. Theresa May, has, in her speech to the Commonwealth Heads of States, offered to assist countries, including Ghana, to rid its status of colonial laws that hinders respect for the practice of LGBT. Since then, Mr. Speaker, critical discourses on our media landscape that has hitherto borders on bread and butter have been reduced to LGBT, an abominable phenomenon that threatens the fundamental existence of the human race. Our religious organizations are not left out. The President has also issued statements to that effect, and indeed, Mr. Speaker, your good self has been reported severally on the matter. Mr. Speaker, we must admit that this is not the first time the issue of LGBT was raised, and our President, both past and present, have called upon the state, the position of the state. The recent trajectories and continuous call on us as a state to indicate our position on the matter appear to us as a calculated attempt to promote and perhaps pressurize the government of Ghana to accept that what otherwise is alien and unacceptable to us as Ghanaians and a sovereign nation determined to build a prosperous society. Mr. Speaker, the position of Ghana on LGBT is a common knowledge and explicitly stated in our status. And one wonders why the question keeps popping up. We find such questions an attempt to undermine our God-given ability to decipher what is right or what is wrong as Ghanaians and to large extent Africans. Mr. Speaker, Chapter 6 of the 1960 Criminal Code, as amended by the Criminal Code at 2003, criminalized unnatural carnal knowledge, which has been interpreted to mean penile penetration of anything other than the vagina. Section 104 states, whoever has unnatural carnal knowledge of any person of the age of 16 years or over without his consent shall be guilty of first-degree felony and shall be liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 5 years and not more than 25 years. Or B, of any person of 16 years or over with his consent is guilty of misdemeanor. Or C, any animal is guilty of misdemeanor. Mr. Speaker, also under the Ghanaian laws, there's no legal recognition of same-sex marriage or couples. Cap 127, Marriage Ordinances of 1951, and Cap 129, Marriages of Mohammedans, Ordinance of 1907, all concur that marriage should be between a man and a wife, and a bachelor and a spinster. Just opposing these laws we have alluded to, it is also obvious and crystal clear that there's no place for LGBT in our beloved country, Ghana. Laws are passed by Parliament, the representative body of the people, and reflections of the value system and aspiration of the people, and not otherwise. Abominable practices such as LGBT are not part of our cultural norms and value systems as Ghanaians and Africans. Ghanaian custom frowns on gay and lesbian engagement or practices. Traditionally, Mr. Speaker, people found to have engaged in such as banished from society. No religion in Ghana, be it Christian, Islamic, or tradition, condones the act of LGBT, which offends the culture, morality, and heritage of the entire people of Ghana and must not be condoned. It is viewed as an abomination, which is why our laws are what it is now. Mr. Speaker, it's an undeniable fact that everyone in Ghana is entitled to his or her freedom, as guaranteed under the Constitution. But the mere fact that one has the zeal to do something does not make it right, unless it goes with the norms of the Ghanaian society. The rights of a citizen are not absolute. It is not. Chapter 12(2) of the Constitution places a limitation on the exercise of our rights vis-a-vis, but subject to respect for the rights and freedom of others and for the public's interest. Mr. Speaker, our value system are not born out for the sake of it, but to guide and prevent the human race from falling prey to destructive ills of our society. Homosexual acts are wrong and intrinsically disordered. They are contrary to the natural law. They close the sexual act to the gift of life. In West, the legalization of homosexuality has already led to the destruction of the family unit. Mr. Speaker, homosexual practice presents public health risks to our society. There are well-documented scientific and medical consequences of the practice. Sexually transmitted diseases are more common. Many homosexuals have multiple partners, and that has increased the death among them through HIV/AIDS. According to the report by U.S. Center for Disease Control, CDC, MSN, men who have sex with men are 40 times more likely to become infected with HIV/AIDS. In Ghana, statistics from the Ghana AIDS Commission show that HIV/AIDS prevalent rate was 7% among female sex workers. That of men who have sex with men, homosexuals, stood at 17.5 as at 2015. Mr. Speaker, LGBT practice is destructive, and Ghanaians particularly, we, their representatives, must never keep quiet. A human and constitutional obligation as the members of Parliament enjoin us to uphold and ensure that our laws positively transform and not to deform our society. We appeal to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana not to allow any form of pressure from either within or outside to introduce and or sponsor a bill to Parliament for the legalization of any indecent practice that is alien to our value system as Ghanaians. We urge His Excellency the President to be resolute and reject in whole all enticements, juicy promises, pressures from the West to accept their dehumanizing practices. Mr. Speaker, the forebears and founding fathers of our dear nation have great respect for the nation's value system, and under no circumstances should we betray their legacy, toil, and trust by allowing a rather backward practice in our society. We want to use this opportunity to assure all our constituents that we will only support bills that seek to promote the dignity of our culture, health, and prosperity of humankind. We, however, urge the people with LGBT tendency to seek assistance and from trained professionals and prayers from our revered pastors and imams and managers. We cannot afford to compromise the future of our nation. The dynamism of any culture should possibly impact on its existence and not to lead to its destruction. Mr. Speaker, we thank you once again for graciously granting us this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for Ho West, you may now ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Health when the Chito Awudome Health Center will be upgraded to polyclinic status. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry is again aware that the population of Chito Awudome is growing, and as part of our policy to require a much wider service package than it has currently. This means that the health center will need to be upgraded to a polyclinic so as to attract the required facilities and staff. However, government is sourcing for funds for the upgrade and rehabilitation of facilities, and Chito Awudome will commence as planned when funds are made available. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy the Minister has acknowledged the fact that the Chito Awudome population is growing. I want to know from the Minister what size of population will warrant a polyclinic.
Mr. Speaker, I've always been thinking that as an MP, you will know the population of Chito Awudome. And I'm surprised my colleague is trying to take that number from me. Mr. Speaker, I will not be in the position to answer this particular question until I make some references. So, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I will come back again to answer this particular question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister will come back to the House to inform the whole House.
He will provide you the specific information.
This particular, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I wanted to know the size of a population that will warrant, not Chito per se, but that will warrant a polyclinic. So the answer, it is good for all of us, not only for my good self. Mr. Speaker, my second follow-up question. Mr. Speaker, the Chito community has provided some facilities through their own initiative, and therefore we have a lot of facilities there. I want to find out from the Minister if he will follow up to find out if those facilities are enough for a polyclinic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will do the follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your last follow-up question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister, in his answer, says that when funds are made available, I want to know, even as we go on recess, to find out from the Minister when funds will be made available for this particular project, so that when I go back, I will inform my people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think earlier in another question said that we have captured some facilities in our 4-year capital investment plan, and Chito Awudome is in that group. And between now and 4 years, I believe the Ministry of Finance and Parliament will be kind enough to give us the money to continue to do that. But Mr. Speaker, the 4 years' time will come, and I think my friend will continue to sit where he is, and will be happy with the facility when we are able to fix it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The last question for the day is in the name of the same honourable member for Ho West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Health when the KWESI Health Center will be upgraded to a district hospital status. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, today all your questions are when. But the when is heavily dependent on money.
And Mr. Speaker, according to the Ghana Health Service planning for hospitals at this level, PG is currently ranked 7th in Volta region for the upgrading of facilities into hospitals. Government is currently sourcing again for funds for the provision of hospitals for every district without a hospital. Therefore, whole West will be catered for when funds are secured. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, PJ Health Center, which has been upgraded to a polytechnic status, has benefited from MTN and the MP to upgrade some facilities there. In fact, we are still in the process of even renovating the laboratory, which can cater for the populace. The district does not have a district hospital at all, and as you mentioned, that's the 7th in the region. A district without hospital, we all know what it entails. I want to ask from the minister that with all these facilities, some renovated by the MTN, some renovated by the Member of Parliament, won't that be enough for it to be upgraded to the district hospital? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, what we do in the ministry is that I know almost all of us, with some little funds we receive as MPs, do some interventions and support facilities in our constituencies. Again, these assemblies also support facilities, and when you have done some work and you invite the ministry, you inform the ministry to come and do an inspection to grade it, we'll send technical people to look at it and grade, and then they will specify what the requirements in the facility shall be in terms of equipment and hardworking professionals or health workers, so that we place them there and then actually give it a proper grading. In this instance, Mr. Speaker, I will from here request a small team to go and do that type of inspection to see how we can grade the facility. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, that my friend will dispatch from here a team to investigate. I want to be part of that team, Mr. Speaker. With that, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable. He said he wants to be a part of the team with this.
I just want to assure you that we'll invite him. Thank you, my colleague.
Honorable Minority Leader, these are all constituency-specific questions. And by the rules, the leaders have agreed. Other members may not comment.
Speaker, I will be guided, but in his answer, it's loaded with capital investment and plans and releases from Ministry of Finance. So I wanted to indulge to ask him how much he has received so far from the Ministry of Finance for capital investment to be able to undertake those purposes. Thank you.
Yes, have you received anything in respect of any of these projects?
The indices for mandatory use.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I was saying that the honorable member for you can't speak on BEDZRAH Hospital for reasons you and I know. So when you want to speak to him about BEDZRAH Hospital, not when I'm in the chair. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in an answer to an earlier question, I think I mentioned that I'm scheduling some of these upgrading and the expenditures we will make through the 2019 budget window. And that is when I expect that we can receive some good level of capital expenditure votes. Other than that, this year, Mr. Speaker, we got only 50 million, which has already been, how do I call it, dedicated and allocated to specific other projects. None of them is included. None of these here is included. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to inform my other colleague who was trying to be inquisitive with their indulgence that BEDZRAH Hospital we'll soon see progress as quickly as we sign some small agreements. And we'll invite you for the recommissioning or short-cutting of the Mekwa Hospital. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, you don't know who he is on the project, do you? Find out.
Mr. Speaker, in our practice, we can't avoid all information. So I want to keep this on the blind side of other colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That is the end of question time.
Question 368. Honorable BEDZRAH, to the same Honorable Minister. You may please proceed.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Interior the status of police investigation of the whereabouts of Mr. George Komla Akoli from 7THPARLIAMENT in the whole West District, who went missing during the annual Sasadu celebration on the 25th November 2017 at Alabanyo in the Hokwe municipality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. George Komla Akoli, who went missing during the annual Sasadu celebrations in 2017, has still not been found. A search party comprising the Ghana Police Service and the Ghana Armed Forces was commissioned to lead the search for Mr. Akoli. The search party, with assistance from the people of Alabanyo, searched the surrounding farmlands in the community, but to no avail. The team extended the search to his hometown, 7THPARLIAMENT, in the whole West District, where evidence information established that a person who identified himself as Lucifer used Mr. Akoli's mobile phone to contact one Abena Akoli, who is the daughter of Mr. Akoli. Mr. Speaker, efforts by the security agencies to trace the said Lucifer have not yielded results so far. Mr. Speaker, I must state that investigations are ongoing and the Ghana Police Service will do its best to unravel the mystery surrounding the disappearance of Mr. George Komla Akoli. This august House would be informed of any developments on Mr. Akoli's case. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to find out from the Minister if he's aware that the 7THPARLIAMENT traditional area has petitioned His Excellency the President about this case.
Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, your question?
Mr. Speaker, all I know is that the ministry is working hard to find Mr. Akoli, and we'll invite anybody who has any information for us to deal with. Letters to the presidency, I would not be competent to deal with. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, any more follow-ups?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the 25th of November, the people of 7THPARLIAMENT has petitioned His Excellency concerning the abduction of Mr. George Akoli. Mr. Speaker, I would like to find out from Mr. Minister whether he has personally visited the 7THPARLIAMENT community to assure the people that the case is under investigation, whether you have visited them or not.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a police investigation. And Mr. Speaker, in the regions, the regional security council and the district or municipal councils are those that are dealing with it for now. What I can assure you is our commitment. In fact, you have contacted me personally on this matter, and I want to assure you and your constituents that we'll do our best. I want your constituents to know that actually you are working hard to help us get it. But for now, this is all we have to report, and I hope you cooperate with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this happened in another constituency, not exactly in my constituency. It happens in another constituency, where we know there is a fight between two towns. In fact, the war or the fight, the infighting is between the people of Alabanyo and that of Nkonya. And therefore, my colleague also has an interest in this case, and she also want to have a follow-up, because I know it's constituency specific. My colleague would like to have a follow-up. But, Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to ask the Minister whether the people of 7THPARLIAMENT should assume that Mr. George Akoli is dead or not.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no, we cannot assume the death of Mr. Akoli. I want to assure you that the government finds each person's life invaluable, and one life loss is a great loss to us, and we shall not, and we cannot declare him dead until we've done, and the law is met that a number of years you haven't found him, you can declare. For now, we are hopeful that we find Mr. Akoli. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for coming to the House. Our questions. You are discharged, please. Yes, Honorable BEDZRAH.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I heard the Chief Whip, Majority Chief Whip, mention that Thursday will be scheduled for the directors from NIA. But in our report, or your report, they are scheduled to meet us on Tuesday 12th. But you mentioned Thursday, so I don't know whether that's the first one. Mr. Speaker, in our last sitting, some of us mentioned that those of us who have appeared before members holding office, committee on members holding office of profit, we have still not gotten our clearance from the office of the Speaker. The business committee has not scheduled anything. They have not told us anything. And I want to ask the Chief Whip whether our request that members who have appeared before members committee on members holding office of profit, what have they done about it? The last one, Mr. Speaker, has to do with the Standing Orders Review Committee. Last meeting we spoke about this, and the business committee has still not come out to tell us anything about the review of the standing orders of the House. I would like to find out from the Chief Whip, who is deputizing for the majority leader and the leader of the business committee, to tell the House how far they've gone with the review of our standing orders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question *382. In the name of the Honourable Member for Tamale North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sought your permission to ask a question on behalf of my colleague, Suheni, who is a constituency.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Roads and Highways when will work will commence on Taha to Ulai Road in the Tamale municipality. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Taha Kula Feeder Road is part of the network of roads that link Snake Flats and 4 suburbs in the Tamale metropolis of the Tamale North constituency in the northern region. The road is supposed The road is approximately 15.5 kilometers and is partially engineered and in poor condition. Mr. Speaker, the current program for this road is that a contract was awarded on 5th August 2016 for rehabilitation of the road under Department of Federal Roads Periodic Maintenance Program. It commenced on 22nd September 2016 for completion on 21st September 2017. The completion date has since elapsed. Mr. Speaker, under this contract, 4.50 kilometers of the road from Taha to Balahi is to be provided with bitumen surface, whilst the remaining would be upgraded to gravel surface. Fiscal progress to date is estimated at 35%. The project has suffered cash flow challenges due to the employer's delay in paying for work done. The future program for this road is that, Mr. Speaker, on completion, the road will receive regular maintenance under the Department of Federal Roads Routine Maintenance Program. I thank you.
Honorable, any follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to know from the Minister, when will payment be made to the contractor, since it is the fault of the employer? When will the payment be made to the contractor?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have started serious discussion on this road, and as soon as practicable, it will not be long at all. This project will go back and the contractor will be back on the road. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Even though the Minister has not given the date when the contractor will be paid, I want to find out from him whether there has been plans for extension of time to the contractor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the ministry cannot extend the time so moto. The contractor would have to apply for it. And since the cause of the delay is at the instance of the employer for delay payment, I want to indicate to this Honorable House that if such an application is made, it will meet favorable consideration. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to find out from the Minister whether there will be payment on the interest on delay payment to the contractor as well.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, interest on delayed payment is contractual, so there's no argument about that. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That ends question time, honorable members. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for attending to the House and answering our questions. Honorable Member for Adakulu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member for Adakulu is on assignment outside the House, and he has requested that I ask the question on his behalf. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask the question on behalf of Honorable Member for Adakulu to ask the Minister for Aviation whether the removal of the 17.5 VAT on domestic airline tickets has led to the reduction of domestic airfares. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is the goal of government to develop the aviation industry to make it highly competitive in line with the vision to make the country an aviation hub for international and regional airlines within West Africa. It is on this note that government pledged and abolished the 17.5% value-added tax, VAT, on domestic airfares as an incentive to domestic airlines, reduce the cost of airfares, and make domestic travel more affordable. Parliamentary approval for the removal of the 17.5% VAT on the domestic airfares was granted in April 2017. Following the abolishment, the ministry engaged domestic airline operators to ensure that the intervention reflected in the reduction of domestic airfares. For instance, domestic airfares from May to November 2017 in the case of Starbull reduced from 375 Ghana cedis to 315 Ghana cedis for Accra Tamale and 315 Ghana cedis to 265 Ghana cedis for Accra Kumasi, Accra Takoradi. Likewise, for Africa World Airlines, our domestic airfares reduced from within the range of 375 Ghana cedis to 500 Ghana cedis to 320 Ghana cedis to 400 Ghana cedis for Accra Tamale and 315 Ghana cedis to 400 Ghana cedis to 270 Ghana cedis to 340 Ghana cedis for Accra, Kumasi, Accra, Tamale, respectively. Table 1.0 shows the reduction in the domestic airfares for Africa World Airlines, AWA, and Aero Service Limited, Starbull, from May to November 2017, Mr. Speaker. The removal of the 17.5 VAT not only led to a reduction in domestic airfares, but also led to an increase in the number of passengers. For instance, domestic passenger throughput from May to December 2017 was 323,754 as against 295,278 passengers for the same period in 2016, representing an increase of 9.64%. Fares are revised periodically by the operators according to the peak and off-peak season. On 13th November 2017, Africa World Airlines revised and published its fares for the peak season. The revised fares ranged between 285 to 395 for Accra Kumasi and 335 Ghana cedis to 445 Ghana cedis for Accra Tamale and 275 Ghana cedis to 365 Ghana cedis for Accra Takoradi. The ministry has taken lessons from the reduction of 25% on aviation fuel ATK by the previous government, where the intervention did not reflect in the reduction of tickets, prices, and other related charges as envisaged. As a result, the ministry intensified its monitoring on the domestic operators in the setting of domestic airfares to ensure that it meets the expectations of government and the traveling public. Besides, the ministry also instituted regular meetings with domestic airline operators, and this has culminated into periodic stakeholder breakfast meetings with airline operators and businesses to discuss issues of common interest, including fares in the aviation sector. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate that as a result of the Starbull accident on 25th November 2017 at the Kotoka International Airport, there is only one domestic operator, which is the Africa World Airlines. The ministry has occasionally received reports of purported increase in airfares by the Africa World Airlines, being the sole domestic operator now. In reaction to this, we have engaged Africa World Airlines, and the ministry is satisfied from the engagements that airfares have been competitive compared to the period of the inclusion of 17.5% VAT. Although the current level of airfares is a function of demand and supply, we all know the impact of competition. It is our expectation that with new entrants in the pipeline and an increased choice of operators by the traveling public, the domestic airfares will come down. The ministry continues to engage other operators such as Starboard to ensure the resumption of operations. We wish to assure this August House that as a policy, local entrepreneurs and airlines are being engaged to set up stronger private airlines to boost the vision of making Ghana the regional aviation hub for air travel. To this end, local businesses and prospective investors such as Baby Jet Airlines, among others, have advanced plans to commence domestic airline operations soon. The ministry will continue to support our and other incoming domestic airlines to grow. The result of the expected competition in the sector will ensure efficiency in air transport and further lead to competitive pricing. We will continue to rely on the support of this August House to enable us achieve our stated objectives and goals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the reduction of VAT on airfares, we've noticed that there were reduction in 2017. The Minister has also mentioned, as a result of the fact that we have only one airline in operation, the fare has gone up a little bit, which is not competitive. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Minister, what's the current rate for the domestic airline, especially for Africa World Airline that is operating now?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I couldn't get the word. What's the current
airfare?
Speaker, as stated, the airfares, they are not static. We have the peak season and the off-peak season. It depends also on the ATK prices. So, as of today, Mr. Speaker, I can supply the figures later to this August House. I don't have it in my notes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will be expecting the Minister to supply this House with the current airfare. Mr. Speaker, we would like to find out from the Minister what is the ministry doing to get more domestic airlines into the system so that we can have the fares being competitive instead of leaving it to only one airline. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have stated in my answer that we are talking to Starboard, talking to strategic investors for them to resume their operations. In addition to that, I did state that Baby Jet Airlines is on stream and the government's own home-based carrier is also coming on board. Very soon we might be even inundated with domestic airlines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable. Item listed 5, statements. We have a statement from the Honourable BEDZRAH on the independence celebrations of the United States of America. Honourable BEDZRAH being chairman of the Ghana-U.S. Friendship Association. Honourable.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to make a statement as the United States celebrates their 247th independent anniversary as a nation. This day, Mr. Speaker, commemorates the historic event of 1776, when the Continental Congress issued a declaration of independence from the British rule. The 4th of July, also known as Independence Day or July 4th, has been a federal holiday in the United States since 1941. But the tradition of Independence Day celebration goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence, and 2 days later, delegates from the 13 colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence, a historic document drafted by Thomas Jefferson from 1776 to the present day. July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of American independence with festivities. When the initial battles in the Revolution War broke out in April 1775, few colonists desired complete independence from the Great Britain, and those who did were considered radical. By the middle of the following year, however, many more colonists came to appreciate to favor independence. On June 7th, the Continental Congress met at Pennsylvania State House, later known as Independence Hall, in Philadelphia, and the Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee introduced a motion calling for the colony's independence. Amid heated debate, Mr. Speaker, Congress postponed the vote on Lee's resolution, but appointed a 5-man committee, including Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, John Adams of Massachusetts, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, and Robert R. Livingston of New York, to draft a formal statement justifying the break with Great Britain. On July 2nd, the Continental Congress voted in favor of Lee's resolution for independence in a near unanimous vote. The New York delegation abstained but later voted affirmatively. On July 4th, the Continental Congress formally adopted the Declaration of Independence, which had been largely written by Jefferson.
Honorable members, the background noise is preventing people from hearing. Yes, Honorable, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through the vote for actual independence took place on July 2nd. From then, on the 4th July became the day that was celebrated as the birth of American independence. Some years later, and specifically in March 1957, another British colony, the Gold Coast, also gained independence, to be known as Ghana. Today, many years later, Ghana has become one of the United States' most important partners on the African continent and continue to celebrate a strong relationship as partners and friends. Right Honorable Speaker, it is imperative to state that the bilateral relationship between the two countries, that's Ghana and U.S., remain excellent. The relationship between Ghana and the United States continue to foster development and has touched, changed, and even saved lives. A few of these examples are as follows. The USAID, Mr. Speaker, grant through the education sector, which is geared towards the increase in literacy throughout the nation. The U.S. prioritized education at all levels and have funded the building and renovation of over 500 schools in Ghana in the last decade. Also, the U.S. has assisted thousands of Ghanaian students with scholarship to study and conduct research in the U.S. through our Mackey Fulbright Educational Exchange Program. Health and wellness is another area of development which the U.S. has put in a lot of effort. They collaborated with the Malaria Control Program to increase the number of insecticide-treated nets, which was made available to the public. The U.S., through its effort, fruitful partnership has facilitated the Nkwanta Sub-District Nutritional Rehabilitation Center, which has become a beacon of hope for the people of the Volta region and for Ghana as a whole. The center has played a critical role in preventing malnourishment in children. Mr. Speaker, security knows no bounds. The U.S., in partnership with Ghana, has exchange program where some military personnel from the United States, spent 3 weeks in Ghana at a jungle warfare at Achiasi military base with their Ghanaian counterparts. Even though this training is demanding, it is critical to our ability to counter threats. The U.S. also worked with the Ghana Police Service to create the Ghana Maritime or Marine Police National Training Academy in Ainasi in the Western region, which trains competent law enforcement officials on tools and techniques for combating offshore narcotics trafficking, piracy, and maritime security threats. Mr. Speaker, speaking of tangible impact, Mr. Speaker, the U.S. government continues to give financial support to the agricultural sector to increase agricultural output, as well as the energy sector. Let us not overlook the critical role of the private sector. American and Ghanaian private sectors are driving forces to create visions and transform economies to create jobs and ultimately strengthen our bilateral relationship. I wish, on behalf of the Ghana-U.S. Parliamentary Friendship Association, to thank the American government and companies that continue to assist and support our sectors in developing this nation. We are two friends, two independent democratic nations working towards many but the same goal. Happy Independence Day. Long live Ghana-U.S. Friendship Association. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable BEDZRAH.